There's a few things I want to talk about, but, this podcast sort of originated out of how I think technology, more so like social media and Instagram and Facebook has really caused a lot of this disruption. And, I even sort of trace this all the way back to like Napster. To me, it's sort of like devalued the craft of artistry. And I see it everywhere, from Martin Scorsese bringing his film to Netflix, just people don't pay for music anymore. And I find that you actually I think about the word pivot. And I think that you've managed to really, and I'm not sitting here just like complaining about it, because I pivot also, and you have to, but I really sort of want to talk about how you managed to sort of pivot over the last probably almost like 15 years. I mean, I don't want to go back too far back, but you really seem to be good at pivoting creatively.
No, thank you. I mean, I kind of I don't look at it like I'm doing something. I think that I adjust accordingly. And I think a lot has to do with my travel. I think because I've been so fortunate that I'm well traveled, I might see trends or see things happening that I adjust to, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Now, saying that, I also would react to people in my same position. So obviously, I'm older, even though I always say I'm the youngest old guy you'll know, probably. But I see people getting bitter, and I just don't believe that, because I feel like sometimes for any of us, we have to react to sign of the times. So, and usually that's referring to technology, whether it's people, how you create, whether it's digitally, musically, or digitally, art-wise, if you're a painter or something. And people would get anger and bitter. And I think I was noticing, because I also speak a lot around the world and lecture and keynote and masterclass and things like this. I think younger people would always resonate with me. I kept thinking, why do they care about me? Meaning they're listening, right?
Right.
And I kind of analyzed it a little bit. And I think it was because I could, I have history and I could talk about experience, but then I could really talk to them about current, where some of my colleagues who are older just didn't want to drink the poison. And I thought, well, why not? Because I remember many years ago, I was on a panel with Phil Ramone, the famous, record producer.
Yeah.
Up in San Francisco at AES. And somebody was talking about like being a purist and analog gear in the digital world. And somebody asked Phil about technology back in the day, recording like Ella Fitzgerald or something. And he said, look, if we had the technology, then we would have used it. But we didn't, and that's all we had. And it was that mindset of like, right now, if there's a new Zoom or I don't know what, you're going to try it. Because like, fuck it, I'm going to use it. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if I was supposed to swear.
Oh, yeah, you can swear all you want. Don't worry. This isn't affiliated with Disney or anything. But, it's I agree with you. And I think just this idea of being able to, I mean, I love Logic. I even love GarageBand. It's like literally within 5 minutes, I can get like some simple loop going and I'm like got something happening. And a lot of records out there now, a lot of them start with GarageBand.
And nobody cares. And that's
right.
The thing that you got to get over. Like you talk about social media and not selling music. It's like I have this conversation always like about music. And I said, look, get rid of that mindset that you're going to be making any money from your music. It's very unfortunate. And I'm not saying you're not going to make money, but it's not like it was. Get over it. Get your music heard. Like if you hear a record, do you really care if it was recorded in GarageBand or Pro Tools or Ableton or Logic? No, you like it or you don't. And if you dig deeper and go down the rabbit hole, you might find something interesting of how that person created that music. But that's because we're nerds. But at the end of the day, I don't really care.
Yeah, but you brought up an interesting point just now. And I got the sense that there was this possibility, more so 5-10 years ago, that one could actually make not even just a living doing art and creativity, but let's just say $50,000, which is certainly not like something that, the Rolling Stones made or Bruce Springsteen, but at least that's a pretty sizable amount of money. And I felt like those windows of opportunity coupled with people's sort of, why should I pay for that? It does feel like people out there. And you're right. Like, if you're making something to make money, that could create sort of some sort of conflict of interest. But there is this attitude where I get the sense that people just don't think they have to pay for art anymore.
You're right. And I just don't even think about it anymore. I'm so past that you have to look at, I always say you have to move sideways to move forward.
Should it not even be a thought of one's mind, or it's just what it is, and we just have to get over it? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I will always say people will steal music, they will steal technology, but they'll pay for knowledge. And that's something that people will always pay for knowledge. And you're seeing that now where people are like the master class, like all these big actors and like record producers and things, or Hans Zimmer or whatever, they're getting paid a lot of money, hopefully, to do these master classes or keynotes. So, but people will pay for knowledge as opposed to it's a reflex to steal music or steal art.
No, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. I just spent like $100 on a David Sedaris masterclass. So you're right. You're right, because you will pay for that, because that's something that's knowledge, and I kind of support it. And that's why I think if you are a creator, and that's sometimes I struggle with people, and I don't mean this like on a pedestal or I'm judging someone, but sometimes I have to remind myself that I struggle with people who aren't creative people. And it doesn't even I don't mean that they're good creators, but you create, whether you create food or you create music, I can relate to you somehow. And I'm not better or worse than anyone, but sometimes if I'm speaking to somebody who's not a creator, I get frustrated. And that sounds horrible. But I agree with you, because sometimes there's this, it's a language that we speak. It's a thought pattern that we think. And I also think part of the reason why I love basketball and sports is I think as artists, we understand the time and energy it takes to get really good at something and be part of that 1 to 3% of the world that actually like gets recognized.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I think it's not only just a language, but I think it's an appreciation for, that there was a lot of work that went into Quentin Tarantino's latest movie. I mean, I never have any idea how he did it, but I can appreciate.
But I think sports and music are very different. I mean, we can understand the effort that goes in to training, but with sports, it's based on numbers and they don't lie. I want to take a step back of the creators, which I don't want to sound like some pompous asshole, but like I have a good friend of mine who's an amazing guy, but he's not a creator, which is fine. It doesn't mean he's just, I still get along with him, but then there's certain challenges that I don't understand his mindset, or vice versa, where he might say food is fuel because he doesn't cook or doesn't maybe know how to cook or want to cook, but he loves to eat. But like me, I love to cook. I love to create. If I'm going to feed you, I want to create something and give it to you. I'm not better than him. It's just that's my mindset. I have to remind myself not to get frustrated with certain people because they don't think the same way.
Yeah. How has LA been for you as just a creative source of energy? And because I didn't realize that you were from Ohio, which is so random.
Well, I was born there. I'm not from there.
Okay. So when did you? How did you get out?
I was born in Akron, Ohio. Moved, I think, when I was 2 years old. Moved to Connecticut as a child and was raised as a child there, and then raised in East Bay of San Francisco Bay Area until I was high school. And I moved to Los Angeles since I was 19. So for me, LA is my home. I've been here the longest. I really love Los Angeles. I think for me, it's always been a great place to call home and to come home to. I've been very fortunate that I'm traveling a lot in my life, in my career. So it's nice to visit interesting places and then come home to LA, because I feel like I'm somebody who I need urgency in my life, you know, where there's culture and theater and music and sport and just things. I think I would get bored if I was somewhere in the world where I was stimulated, and then I come home to like Milwaukee, or I'm just making that up. There's nothing here. LA has a lot here, and it's a long answer to your question. I feel like LA is one of the last frontiers if you are trying to succeed in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
As loyal as I am to LA, I'm not loyal. Like if tomorrow I hit rock bottom, and I think I would probably move, you know, and be like, okay, I'll live somewhere else. But I love it here.
I've had a very love-hate relationship with social media, and I'll just briefly explain. I think, you know, right now there's people that are, instead of getting knowledge, as you say, people are just pitter-pattering back and forth on social media and spending a lot of their free time right now just sort of wasting away, scrolling all day and looking at a lot of meaningless shit. And, you know, even like 2 days ago, I saw you post a photo. Can I mention his name? Is that okay? Yeah, because I'm just curious, you know, how you're working with him and all this. Or you post this really innocent photo of you with Seal, and you're like playing.
I could beat up over it.
Yeah, you're playing tennis or something, and some guy basically, or it could have been a woman, I don't know. Somebody's basically giving you shit about, oh, you're not practicing social distancing. You know, this isn't really responsible of you, and I get annoyed where anybody out there in the world could say whatever the fuck they want. And I'm not.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, my account is private. Sometimes I open it up. I think it's public now. I think social media, okay, to go back is two steps. I agree. I think we're all guilty of spending too much time on social media, because then you just start going down these rabbit holes of your neighbor's, gardener's, babysitter's, son's, daughter, friend. I don't know. You just find you're like, how did I get there? Where am I? You know? So that's we're all guilty of. In the sense of, you know, I think if you put something up there that you feel is insensitive or you don't want to share, I think it stems from the person posting it. I mean, the reason why I did that post was that if you know me, or someone does, Seal's one of my best friends. I've known him for 25 years and plus. We've made music together, traveled together, etc. And I live, you know, downtown. It's very different, this whole quarantine thing. I can describe it if you want, but it's pretty crazy. It's no nature. You walk outside, buildings are boarded up. There's no one walking the street unless you live here, which is, you know, very specific crowd, or you see homeless. So we see homeless more than anyone because we live near Skid Row. Anyone lives in, you know, downtown. So, but when it's spread out with society, it's a part of the landscape. But now people are going out to like go somewhere and go home or take a walk or something. So homeless are kind of featured, for better or for worse. So right. You're around it, right? So here I am. I don't drive for 37 days. I don't leave my neighborhood for 37 days. I stick by the rules. So Seal's like, hey, mate, you know, me too. You know, same, you know, not seeing people. Or if you did see, like I would take walks with my neighbors, but we would do it 6 feet apart. He says, why don't you come up, let's hang out and play tennis. Okay, cool. He lives in a fucking private estate up in Topanga. It's his own thing, private tennis court. There's no one up there. You know, I brought my son who's, you know, 20 years old, and he snapped a picture. And sure, in the picture, we probably weren't 6 feet apart because we were putting the tennis balls in the bucket. And of course, this guy calls me out, and I just had to laugh. And you probably saw my comments, which were like, "Hey, man, probably was a bad message. Sure, I didn't mean it that way. It was just sort of innocent, but I can only blame myself because I put the picture up there."
Well, I don't think you should blame yourself. I think this is how this connects to coronavirus and even social media. I mean, social media, and yeah, we can laugh about it and we're all guilty of it. But again, as a creator, there's only so much time in the day and life goes really fucking fast. And we didn't have distractions. Led Zeppelin 30 years ago when they made like Led Zeppelin 1 or 2, the only distractions were like drugs and women. That was sort of about it. They just like did their thing. And, slowly but surely we keep getting televisions and then phones and then social media. And if you're not careful, you're going to be wasting 3 hours a day doing nonsense. And it's almost like through dopamine and through attention, social media has sort of like tricked everybody into becoming addicts of their phone. And I also think in this weird sort of way that the coronavirus has sort of like manipulated people too. It's almost like we're becoming more isolated. More people are becoming more reliant on technology. More people are staying home. I mean, have you ever like questioned what's going on, or have you just sort of like...
Not really, because it's almost 50-50. Well, maybe not 50-50, but there's a good percentage of people that would argue conspiracy theory, argue overreacting, argue hidden agenda. My take on it is it's real. I mean, the numbers are real. People are dying. That they're not lying. I mean, maybe certain numbers are inflated or deflated. I don't know. But I'm not going to question that. I can only hope that when this is, I won't say done because it's not going to be done for a long time, I think. But when we ease back into society, I hope that we can look back as human beings, as individuals, and hope that we take something from this in a positive sense, that one, we can survive because of technology. Because I think as a society, if this was the 30s, I mean, if for some reason like there was no power, we'd be fighting a civil war.
Yeah.
I think we'll never have this kind of solitude in our life again. So I'm not looking at it that way. I mean, and also I live alone. I have a nice place, or nice enough. It's not huge. It's a loft, but I know a lot of people are living challenging lives with, let's say, small children, small apartment or something. It could have been a lot worse,
Well, and it's funny you brought up a point too that I think about, and I'm just a very inquisitive person, and I find life to be. It just feels like the world wants us to stare at our phones. The world wants people to just stay home. There is this sort of natural, almost hidden agenda where we just sort of like follow the lead and just kind of do what I think we're impacted by the media and technology.
But I don't think we had a choice, though.
Well, that's what's so interesting. I think maybe you're right, but it just feels like nobody ever questioned what's going on, and I've just found that.
Well, I don't know. I think plenty of people are questioning theories and why, and I think now it's coming to light because so many communities are like, "Fuck you! I want my store open. I want to go to the beach. I want to do this. I want to do that." I think where we have a choice, though, is how we like. I have two answers to that. One is I haven't turned my TV on once. I mean,
yeah,
I watch some stuff on my iPad, like while I'm eating my dinner, but I'm not going down the rabbit hole of watching too much TV. I don't condemn people who do. I don't do video games. There was one girl I knew, I don't even know very well. She hit me up and she said something like, "Hey, here's my number. We're just kind of social media friends." And she goes, I'm going to deactivate my IG account because this was a couple of weeks ago. She says, "I feel like if we are allowed on May 15th, I want to know that I've got a month left to accomplish some things that I would want to look back to know I did something besides fucking like clean my sock drawer and watch every binge show." And I really admired that. So I think that there probably are some people out there that are hopefully checking things off the box.
interesting. I think I think it's, and I feel like you embody this, where it's almost like you're not going to give a fuck what's going on. I'm going to focus on the task at hand. I mean, obviously you're not like naive and not going to educate yourself about it, but I think there's only so much that, why waste the time thinking about, and it's not even conspiracy theories, but although I do think, though, what frustrates me is that I am reading they're falsifying the numbers, they're elevating the numbers, and I do think this shutdown and just telling people to stay home, and I think about restaurants and my friends that open up restaurants. I mean, you want to talk about dying. I don't know how that industry is ever going to survive, but maybe it will. Maybe 6 months from now, the restaurant industry.
Yeah, don't you think, though, Eddie, that they had no choice than to shut down, society?
I just don't think this is any different than, there's coronaviruses that come out every year. We didn't know that. The common cold is a coronavirus. The flu.
Yeah, but then how did the numbers lie? I mean, this is more than the flu.
I think there's an agenda out there. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't even have a conspiracy. I do think there is someone or a company or a country that wants that number to be high to scare the fuck out of people. And, Fauci just like 3 weeks ago said it was going to be 100 and 250,000 that died. Then a week after that, he said it's probably going to be like 40 or 50,000. Then 3 days after that, there's an article that comes out in the New York Times where they are giving somebody a coronavirus death if it's presumed they died that way. Even if they weren't diagnosed with it, they're just going to write it down as a COVID-19 death. So it does feel to me like there is an agenda or a reason why they want that number to be high, and it's scaring the hell out of people. And if you even question it, then you just sort of get called a Republican or some Trump lover and everything. I don't know. I find it a bit perplexing.
Yeah, all good questions. I definitely don't have the answer, and I'm not even putting that much thought into it because I feel like I'm following the rules. I'm doing what we're told to do. I'm just worried about the economy because I feel like right now I have a prediction that we'll be right back in the fall. That's what I think. I think that we'll ease into normality in the next few weeks. They'll start opening up the borders. People will abuse it. And at some point when the weather changes and people get sick naturally from cold weather, we might have another bump in it, and then we'll be forced to go back. That's what I'm predicting. I hope I'm wrong, but we need society to get back. That's for sure, for so many reasons. Because if not, we're going to be a third world country real soon.
No, I know. I hear you.
Right?
I want to know a little bit more, and I'm sure people want to know, just because for me, I remember when I had a piano at the house and I was 3 years old, and I remember picking up the drums for the first time when I was 10, and I read about you and I know you a little bit, and it's DJ, producer, electronic musician, and when did it all sort of become clear? And this again, I begrudge social media and technology sometimes because it can get in the way. How did you have the freedom to explore and just sort of, when did that sort of curiosity take shape? And it feels like it's still more alive than ever. So.
I think for me, it's so important to react. And, we all don't know when we're reacting at the right time, whether it's fashion or whether it's you're in a relationship and you're reading the person wrong. I've always been a technologist my whole life. It's always interested me. So when trends would start, or musical trends or anything, I would try to react and see if it felt natural. I think if you're talking specifically about social media, I think it's okay. This is actually a good example. So earlier in my career, how did one relay your information for your fans or your colleagues? For instance, Facebook to me, which I don't pay much attention to anymore, is kind of like family stuff, my kids and relatives, or I don't know who, sisters, and older, not younger, older friends of mine that are generally in the industry. So it's a good way to sort of put statuses, updates, or things like this. But I would put newsletters out, an email every month or every few months of what I was doing. Then I was like, no one's fucking reading this. Nobody wants this. So then you have to but I immediately knew that. So I stopped doing it. And then I just parlayed that into social media updates. And then you have to be clever of not doing too much and how you do it, which is always delicate. So you don't sound like you got to stick up your ass. And then I just realized that was the new norm. Now Instagram is kind of the only game, in my opinion. Well, and Twitter, I guess. It's a little bit different. I treat them all separately. And another thing is I surround myself around a lot of young people, so I get a temperature of what people are doing and what people are wanting. I mean, nowadays, you don't even exchange numbers. It's just like, what's your IG? Like, whether it's a woman or whether it's a colleague in the studio, it's like, it's all about your Instagram. I mean, and then what happens is you go out somewhere and you don't even know someone's fucking name. You just know their Instagram handle.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't even know that person's name. It's just like, monkey bars or whatever, something crazy.
Can you think back, though? What was like your first sort of break, or what was your first, because I think you started out as an engineer, right?
Yeah. So to give the 1 minute spiel of my career,
Yeah, and I don't even, you know what it is? It's more about, are there specific moments that you remember where you were like, this is what I want to do?
Well, yeah. So I guess to narrow in on that question, I was always behind the scenes, producing or engineering or mixing, right? But when I never wanted to be an artist, but I wanted to do music of my own so I could get recognized to be hired. That was the whole purpose. I never wanted to be a rock star. I never wanted to tour. I never even wanted to be, I was in bands younger, but I never really wanted to be in a band in my adult life. It was like, no, you hire me. That's what I wanted to do. So that's what I did. But then I had relative success, and I use that term, loosely, with my artist records, and then becoming known not for the producer and the engineer and the mixer, but more of the remixer or the artist or the collaborator, where then I had bands and things like this. And it just sort of fell into place. I think one of the most pivotal times was when I was working, I think it was with Paul Oakenfold or something, doing his record. And my manager at the time was like, you're doing all this for him. Why don't you just do it for yourself? Social media is getting in the way of like your time and how you're managing your time? And again, I'll turn on Facebook for a second, and the bickering that goes back and forth, and then do you feel like it's causing more disruption or more disconnection? Do you feel like it's as disruptive as I think it is? I think a lot of people use it in a wrong fashion as a platform to voice their opinion, where I find that with my work now, it's sort of a resource of information, not even news, but information. If you want to know about a sports star or a music star, or not even a star, just someone you admire, you're going to go to that page for information. And also I feel like you can find out a little bit about that person, even though you might not know. And I'm talking about like big people too. You might not know how they are, but you can kind of tell on their social media, if they're outspoken politically or something. I know this is a sore subject, and it sounds like it's a sore subject with you about social media, but you have to look at these things as a tool. And that's kind of how it is, and that's where I think Facebook is a little bit different than Instagram. Like with Instagram, like rule 101 is you got to be careful how many hot girls you follow, because then you just go down that fucking rabbit hole. Like, these hot girls come on your feed who are, their whole life is selfies and poses. You got to just cut that off immediately because it's so distracting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and sure, some of those people might even be your friends, you know, but it's just like, do I need to be seeing this person having their fucking cup of tea in the morning? No. So you got to know, cut them loose, versus, you know, following news threads of the BBC or Al Jazeera or whatever you choose, CNN. But for a lot of people, it's a creative force where they're putting little snippets of music on there and you're getting tidbits. And I look at it as a tool, but we're all guilty of spending too much time. We're all guilty of following people that we shouldn't follow because maybe they have a negative message. Maybe they're just full of shit. Maybe it's just a waste of my time. And then it's a choice.
Do you think like people's attention spans and do you think the quality of art has gone down? And I think about just, I know that's a very huge generalization to make, but I think about people don't really listen to records anymore. And I don't feel like the quality of music is as great or as interesting as it used to be. I feel like
that's true, but again, that's society as we know it. I mean, people are used to reading headlines; they're not used to reading articles. You know?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's the same thing for social media. You're used to listening to a 15-second or a 1-minute clip, but again, I think instead of analyzing it, that's all we have now. And to me, I'll look at it like when I post things or when I do things to, you know, selfishly promote my work or something. I have to think, I got 15 seconds. I have 30 seconds. I've got 1 minute. Give them your best shot. If I can get them involved or engaged, then that's enough. Because again, it goes back to how we started this conversation. Getting your music heard is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Don't even think about money, selling it. No, I want you to listen to my music. If I got to get on my hands and knees, or I got to make you a meal, I got to listen. I want you to listen to my fucking music.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, but it's just, I'm not playing devil's advocate here. I think the combination of our society and technology, it's forced people to think like that. And you literally have like 5 seconds to get somebody's attention or they're going to move on to something else. And I do think about like just even Martin Scorsese's movie, The Irishman, which whether I didn't like it, but again, Paramount's thinking, who's going to go to the movie theater for 3.5 hours and watch this movie? We're not going to finish paying for this thing. I mean, people are not leaving the house. People aren't sitting through a full record anymore. I mean, and again, not that that's, well, I don't know. Is it good or is it bad?
Yeah, see, I disagree with you there because I think he was really clever because he's somebody who can do whatever the fuck he wants, right? If you're
Sure.
Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese or Radiohead or those kinds of bands, it doesn't matter. You're Travis Scott. You can do whatever you want, however you want, and the people will come. But here's somebody who convinced him, look, the new game is Netflix, is Amazon Plus, is, you know, Hulu, is, you know, go down the list. This is the game in town, period. 1. 2, if you want it in the Oscars and to win the trophy, sure. For the novelty's sake, play by the rules. You put it in the theater for 2 weeks, 10 days, which is a wank, and you pull it. And it goes right to subscription-based services, which then it will reach more people. It will have a longer shelf life. They have real money. You will still get the accolades from the award shows. So what's the problem? To me, I think that's smarter. And I also think that, I mean, as much as I still like to go to the movies, especially with the world just ending, those days are going to be over because who knows how they're going to open. So
I think about experiences. Let's just talk about you and I right now, or like we love food. Let's say Wolfgang, going to Wolfgang Puck's restaurant and eating there, him saying hello is like the ultimate experience. And then the next level down would sort of be going there, taking it to go, and, hanging out at your place and talking and eating dinner. And then the next level down would be, going to the grocery store and picking up Wolfgang Puck's. I think those sort of ultimate experiences, Martin Scorsese, he didn't want to go to Netflix, but Paramount didn't want to pay for it anymore because they didn't think it was worth spending $200 million on this movie. So his next option was Netflix, let's save the day. We're going to finish this out. I mean, his vision was to have it in theaters for a 2 to 3 month run. But I think we're all sort of, I think our level of quality and greatness, just because of technology and because of attention spans, it's all, the experiences aren't as wonderful. They're different.
But I think that those experiences, they exist if you choose it. And everybody wants an experience, don't get me wrong. But I think now that the world just kind of reset itself, it's a new standard. So it's kind of insignificant because there will always be those experiences where you pay too much money for the restaurant and, the chef comes out and has a chat with you. But I think now with society drastically changing, as much as it's going to be hard to not have as many sporting events or music or theater, it's going to be controlled environments. And that will alone be an experience where, singers or artists will have smaller venues, more control. You pay more money. Maybe restaurant is, you can't go to Wolfgang Puck, but you can pay Wolfgang Puck to come to your place.
Right.
I don't know.
Do you ever, it's weird, and I just was thinking this last thing, I'll let you go. Maybe I'm sort of, I don't know if it's being a romantic, or I do just sort of think back, though, to those experiences where I sat through the whole OK Computer record, or I sat through all of Sea Change. I still have those experiences, but I think collectively, when I knew my friends were all like experiencing Radiohead's OK Computer at the same time because it came out at the same time, or even like grunge, the grunge scene of the 90s. There was something about community and collectively us all sort of experiencing the whole Pearl Jam record at the same time. And it does feel like there's just a bit more individualism happening now where everybody's sort of on their own.
But can I challenge you on that question? And I don't mean to challenge you, but I think it's important good. Because I catch myself because most people feel the same. You want to see the film in the theater. You want to hear the entire album and create your own experience. I agree with you. I also think I'm not a purist, so I don't care as much. But in the same breath, I'll be around a lot of young people and go see like Beyonce or Travis Scott, or maybe records that I might not listen to or maybe not care as much for. Not to say that they're not great records. I just don't have as much of an interest. But those people know every song. Those people talk about the same thing that we would have experienced for a record. And then I feel really fucking old because is it that I don't like that record, or is it that I don't understand it? And I think that's a case where I just don't understand it, because there are kids waiting for the next Travis Scott record, and they're waiting for the next whoever, record that maybe I don't yearn for. But they're experiencing what we experienced when, a Prince record came out, or a Stevie Wonder record, or go down the list. So that's where, I've been to Coachella every year, right? And I'll sit there and I'm around my friends and everybody's singing along and like, oh my God, this fucking song. And, they play two notes just like I would do two notes of a record I love. And like, oh my God, they're playing this song. And I'm fucking clueless. Right? And I feel like 150 years old. And they probably think the same thing when I mention bands, and they're like, who's In Excess? Who's Seal? Who's I don't know, even records like 5 years ago, they don't even know, like REM or something maybe. But so I think we're saying this one side.
Yeah.
Really, you got to put yourself in check, because, by me, I can end this by saying, since I juggle my life of my music career currently and working at Native Instruments, I'm around a lot of young people. I'm around a lot of new music, a lot of cutting edge music. And I have to really put myself in check and challenge myself, because sometimes I look at them like deer in headlights, and sometimes they look at me in deer in headlights. And I'm trying to find that balance, because there's something to be said about experience, but there's also something to be said about being open-minded.
That's really well said. How has it?
And I'm not saying I'm great at either, but I have to challenge myself, because then that's how I discover new music.
Yeah.
And new trends and new things. And it kind of goes back to how we started this conversation about technology, where like I'll be in the studio with Zed, and it's like big SSL and a laptop or Flume or somebody, and the SSL is a big volume knob, but I don't care, because they're making records how they make records. So I don't give a shit. If it sounds good, it sounds good.
How has Native Instruments been, and if it hasn't, I'll obviously delete it, but I would get the sense that working there with them has been pretty awesome.
It has. I mean, I've been, it was an interesting time of my life. I've been there 6 years now, I think. And, it was sort of a time where I was going through a divorce and selling my house and just not knowing which path to take. And they were courting me to head artist relations in America. And it just kind of made sense. And they were very open about allowing me to take time off to do records and to do some shows and things like this. And knowing that I'm a technologist and a nerd on one side and a musician and, making records, I felt like it was a good fit, because I was still in the game. I wasn't too young and didn't have experience in the world, and I wasn't too old and bitter to be out of the game. I felt like I was sort of hopefully in the middle, and it was a good marriage. So I'm still there, and it's nice to feel kind of in the mix, because it definitely helps me, because I don't know if I would be on the forefront of all this technology and music if I wasn't there. And
what's up with Seal? Are you making a record with him right now?
Yeah, he's making a new record. I'm helping him. He's working with a few other people as well, and we've done some stuff. And yeah, it's just more friends and family. The great thing about Seal is he's singing as good as he's ever sang. He's writing some great songs. He still has urgency, and people still care about him, I think. I mean, I know he's in a bracket of his career where he's sort of a legacy artist, but yeah, he's making some good records, and I'm producing records for other people. I'm putting out my own music, and I like to, collaborate with a lot of different people, and ethnic world music has been successful for me. So I kind of balance between this sort of ambient electronic thing I do and world music, and I'm having good success on it, so I can't complain.
It's cool. I feel like you're a good voice for people like between 15 and 30 that are creators. If there's like one thing that you would say, and that's the thing. I think it's easy to sometimes get discouraged. Although you have all these tools, it can feel overwhelming to quote unquote make it.
Well, yeah, and I think that if I could leave you with one bit of advice, and I've spoken a lot at universities, and I just did a big keynote at Syracuse, well, on Zoom,
right?
But just a few weeks ago. The thing that I always tell to young people, or just not even young in age, but young just music makers, is something that seems to be lost is urgency. And when I think back about my career, I had urgency when I was young, and passion and urgency is something it comes. And if you don't have it, it's, people have safety nets, or they've got their parents to help, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean there's a net, there's something there to protect you. And I moved here at 19. I had $1,000. I was the janitor at Westlake Studios in the morning. I was the runner in the day. And then I would stay at night and solder cables and learn from techs and sleep at the studio and not have a lot of girlfriends because I was too busy with my dream, and it was hard to have a relationship with a woman because after picking them up late too many times, they'd cut you loose. But my point is, the urgency and the passion that I had was what allowed me to have success early in my life, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to get around to that. And that's why I tell people with this quarantine that we're in, try to take some of this time, try to accomplish things that you might have not had time before. Because think about this, Eddie, if you go on a holiday with somebody, it's easy to map it out. Like, oh, I'm going to go for 2 weeks with my girlfriend or boyfriend or your